All right. So just sat down, got myself a nice cup of tea, and this stupidly huge mug with it's just a dumbest looking mug. I'll toss a picture up on screen. And we're gonna play some casual Stellaris. So I just quickly tossed this together. It's the Rockman Union. Yeah, really creative, right? But um, they're going to be a they're an oligarchy. Actually, no, they're not. They're democratic with functional architecture and mining guilds. So these mining guilds, essentially, the whole empire is going to be based on like mining and rocks. These guys are super into rocks. Let's do a three-arm spiral, and I'll just leave it at where I leave it. And so keep in mind this is a very casual gameplay. I'll just be using this to hang out and talk a little bit. And so, Stellaris, and this is base Stellaris, by the way. I turned off all my mods. Something wasn't working right. But Stellaris is a kind of game where it pokes your brain, you know. You're given a whole galaxy to look at, and you start in one little system. Usually you have a world you can inhabit that you can colonize quickly. And it's a game about exploration, but it's also a game about warfare. It's a game about diplomacy and more than that, it's a game about economy. Um the key to a successful game is having a strong economy. And oops, let me pause that real quick. I want to get this guy going on an automated um, search, right? And he'll prioritize these places that are close to systems we own and have planets. But just the topic of economy for me is something interesting. Um, obviously, I suppose I shouldn't say obviously, but I am interested in economics. I think a lot of us are. I think most of us are. But I would consider myself at best an amateur, and it's a really contentious field to begin with. So, I don't really want to jump into that. But I was just thinking today, so I'm from the United States. You could probably hear it. You might even be able to guess where I'm from based on my voice, maybe some little bits of accent poke through every now and again. Ah, alien life. But I live in China, right? And so I've gone to school here. I work here now, and it's been fantastic. It's been a really good adventure, and you know, some of that adventure is kind of fading away, as I get older and more real life things get in the way. But you, that's relative. I think anyone can say something similar, you know, even in any country, having moved from studying to working. I don't think it's particularly mind blowing that I feel a little less adventurous or free. But regardless, um, I did want to talk about that because I was thinking about it this morning, you know. So I guess I'll just give a rundown of my I guess situation. The Erasians, excellent. So I am working at a kindergarten, and it's you could call it a passion. I quite enjoy education, and it's something that I want to do in one form or another with my life. Um, and so I enjoy my job. It's not perfect, but it's about as good as a job as I could hope for. And I earn a pretty good wage. Now, if we have any listeners who are also from the United States, my wage is 20,000, around 20,000 RMB after tax. 20,000 RMB is at right now probably a little over 3,000 a month. So if you put that, bring that to the United States with our likely lower taxes or tax returns, you'd be looking at maybe 36 a year, right? Um, Not great. But in China, getting 20,000 RMB or around this 36 a year um, doesn't make you rich. But what it does make you is well off enough. Because the cost of living is remarkable. So to just give a more in-depth rundown, my cost of living in China is very low. My rent is 4,000 RMB, and my job gives me a 2,000 RMB stipend to pay towards my rent. So I rent with my wife, right? So if I take that 2,000, and I should say my rent is 4,000 RMB. I think I said that. So if I take that 4,000 RMB, subtract 2,000, essentially we're paying 2,000 RMB. I think we start with probably prosperity. Let's start with prosperity. Cancel agenda available. And so that 4,000 is effectively around 2,000. Granted, it's all coming from the same source, so maybe we'll just say it's 4,000. Well, 4,000 RMB for me, since I'm taking 20k per month, is only a fifth of my income, which is significantly less than I've had to pay, in at any time in the United States when I lived there. And that's pretty remarkable, right? But you got to remember that this is two people living together. This is two people, meaning that that's 2,000 for each of us. So in reality, if we split 50-50 on the rent, which is more or less what we do, I'm looking at 2,000 a month just for me, which is 10% of my income. Well, you might be thinking, well, oh, what if there are other costs, right? Things like food or utilities or blah, blah, blah. Water and electricity are dirt cheap. Food is not expensive. I can eat out every day, essentially. And as long as I'm eating at relatively cheap places, it might cost me 50 a day RMB, which is around, it's more likely to be higher than that, so why don't we up it and just say 60 to 70, which is around $10 a day. If I'm cooking from home, it's close to the same or lower, which is pretty remarkable. And if you add up all these costs, right, if it's 50 a day and we have 30 days a month, that's 1,500, which is still actually somewhat similar to rent. Likely it's going to be over that because we'll go out to eat at nicer places a couple times a week, or we'll go out for drinks or coffee. And so we're looking at probably anywhere from 2 to 3 in food. And that can be lowered by quite a bit. We're not the smartest financially when it comes to that. And so ultimately, and transportation, there's basically none. We have to get like Ubers or whatever, car sharing services every now and again, but on a daily basis, I typically either spend anywhere from 8 RMB, which is like $1 per day, or less, because I might not go out on weekends. And like to get to work, I have to take the subway. That's four RMB each way. So that's 8. And then I can rent a shared bike to get to my work because it's a little distant from the subway station. Well, that shared bike ultimately costs me 0 every day. So that cost is just nearly indescribably low, which is fantastic. Um, and so if we add up all these extra costs, right, ultimately I'm spending on necessities maybe a fifth to a fourth, maybe a fourth to a fifth of my total income, which is incredible considering in the past, I, cost of living has been frankly just ridiculous and and it eats up all your money. You can barely save, but out here, hypothetically, I can save like 80% of my income, right? And I can toss 50% of that, 60, I don't know how much, into investments and things like this. So yeah, it's only 3,000 US dollars a month, but 2,000 of that is being set away every month. Whereas if I had a similar job back home, I would not be able to put that much away. I'd need, depending on where you live, obviously, you need much more than that to put 2K away a month. But that's what I can afford. If I really tighten my belt, that's what I can afford. In reality, it's going to be lower because, I mean, it's tempting. It's difficult to fight the temptation to just spoil yourself semi-regularly when you don't have to worry about major costs, and that's not even to take into account the occasional medical cost, which thankfully I have no serious medical conditions. We'd probably scrap it. Medical conditions, so there's no cost there, but if I just want to go and do a checkup or get some medicine or something, it's also only going to cost me, in my experiences, at max like 30 US dollars. So ultimately, what can I say? The economy is fantastic. Now, one of the reasons why it's so good for that is that essentially everything is subsidized. I mean, like everything, which comes with its own drawbacks, obviously, but the high-speed rail. From where I live, I can get a high-speed rail into Shanghai for around like 12 US dollars. And then I can just walk around Shanghai for the day. The costs are super low. Obviously, public transportation costs are low. Food is low. Rent is low. Mostly because of incredibly large subsidies to these sectors. Which is, again, we could call it a feature of the Chinese economy. It comes with benefits. It comes with drawbacks. Admittedly, they take more tax than they would in the United States in most places. If you're in a huge city, then they might take more there. But it's otherwise, well, frankly, it's kind of reasonable what they take for what you get. I can hop around the city and go all around just sitting on the subway station. And the maximum fare is like 1 US dollar, and that's to go from one edge of the city to another, right? And then I can just go and do whatever, and then go get a 20 RMB meal, and that's $3. It fills me up. I only need like 2 of those a day. So it's nice. And I mean, obviously, does come with some drawbacks. The taxes, just strictly from an economic sense, it comes with drawbacks like taxes, or um, because of a lot of these subsidies, and just the state of like rental units in general. People. So the thing is in China is that there's a huge real estate market. It's the people's primary method of investment, because the stock markets and just financial infrastructure in general is poor. Um, Frankly, the investment opportunities are not good apart from like real estate or luxury items. So, but within this market, there are certain homes which are essentially deemed for renting and some that are deemed for owning. This is based on my understanding, and it's a very rough um, portrayal of this system. And if anyone knows better, then please correct me, because I definitely want to learn more about this. But the rental units typically won't be renovated to be sold as houses. Not always, but usually. And so that results in landlords being being disincentivized to keep up with their units, and so a lot of units are, I wouldn't call them in disrepair, but they're functional. They're not very beautiful, and I've been in lots of units where you walk in and there's still plaster dust on the walls. They don't even take the plastic off the windows when they put them in. Uh, they keep stickers on stuff. They use the cheapest water heater with the smallest tank, And so the quality of these places is passable. It's good enough. I can tell you for myself, I'm not incredibly picky. Um, I'm fine with it. Um, oh, hostile fleet, and just a litany of whatever these are called. Let's pause and see what they are. Ah, there they are. It's our space amoebas. 3.6k. Can't fight that right now. 9 of them. Adults. Ooh. And so, uh, but so yeah, you end up with the situation, obviously, with the super inflated real estate market and relatively poor financial infrastructure, which leads to, frankly, unless you're a big businessman or something, or you have like a product to sell, um, not very good investment opportunities for your average citizen, for your average person. Um, it's just pretty mediocre, and that's obviously a little disheartening. But um, if I can move money out and put it in the U.S. financial market, it's much better for me. And frankly, I think that, again, unless you're investing in a business or investing in some kind of like production of some kind, or technology, even some cases, investing here is relatively inaccessible, especially for foreigners. I'm not even sure if we can have investment accounts, and if we can, um, they're usually, I would assume that they would be limited. And there's always the risk of market manipulation, because markets are heavily monitored here, and they'll be adjusted uh, based on people's whims sometimes. Okay, yeah, so the markets everywhere have this problem. You have these oligarchs or mutual fund, this kind of thing, where they'll set they'll mess with the market. But in China, uh, you can walk around cities and see departments, government departments specifically aimed at market, um, I guess not manipulation, but like market like observation and monitoring. And so they will uh, essentially move and use the market to reach a particular aim. Because especially with Chinese 5-year plans and um, just the general economic, I guess, attitudes and setting, they. Oh, excellent. They want the market to move in a certain way because they're utilizing the market to reach a different aim, right? They say it's for, Chinese socialism. And I take them at their word. I don't necessarily think they're lying. But whatever their vision of this Chinese socialism is, I don't know. It's hard to say. Uh, so just the relationship for the market is different. But what that means is that if they decide that they don't like you, or they decide that what you're doing goes against the plan, etc., they can essentially seize your assets without any warning or without any recourse. And so the closer you fly to the sun, the more dire the punishments are. And again, you can say this is true about anywhere because, I mean, it is, right? People get punished in the United States all the time for horrible practices. But in China, it's made very clear who's the big boy and whose rules you must play by. And I very much like for that not to be interpreted as like, oh, it's evil and authoritarian, because that doesn't reflect my views. It's just kind of the reality, um, and you can come up with your own conclusions from it. But um, ultimately, right, we can sit here and say it's wrong, and I think in some ways, I think it's unsustainable, in my opinion, in my very very um, amateur opinion. And it likely is unsustainable, but they're not necessarily trying to do it forever, you know, just enough to keep things good for now while they bring in an even better, and they continue to transform the economy and bring in even better opportunities. So I can respect that. And so, but it just makes life here pretty stressless in terms of finances. It doesn't make it very free. It doesn't make it very. How should I put this? It doesn't make it particularly lucrative, but it makes it safe. It makes it convenient, and it makes it comfortable. And that's really, in my mind, the number one benefit of this type of economic model, which is, I really wouldn't call it planning because they move beyond that, but there are elements of planning. They do want to aim in a certain direction. But obviously the problem comes with just legal, just laws and politics in general. Especially as a foreigner, it's possible but not easy, and frankly, for most people, not desirable to stay here super long term and retire and things like this, unless you have business opportunities and you have a business settled deep into this culture it's difficult to get your hands on you will not be naturalized. You will never be naturalized, but you might be able to get like the equivalent of a green card, which would just be a permanent residency. Cool. And a lot of places, and so that's actually not as hard as some people think, but it's still not like easy, obviously. But as a foreigner, you can't buy into the what's it called? The like the government sponsored insurance. You can't get on the government sponsored healthcare. You can get it through your employer, but that means you need to be employed. And so that means long term, um, it's not good unless you're a businessman because the jobs that are available are usually short term jobs. They're either high stress corporate jobs or um, kind of blow off like training center English teacher jobs. Yeah, okay, I'm an English teacher, but and I'm not at an official um, like international kindergarten, but ours is like a step between like low level training centers and like genuine international um, international curriculum type schools. And you can do this, but is it like a long term job? Is it something like that? Because you inevitably will have to leave China as a foreigner. It's basically impossible to avoid, and you need to get skills that will apply somewhere else. So what can you do, right? And if you don't get access to these other social, um, socialized medicine and insurance and things like this, then especially if you're considering retiring in China, it's not going to be good. But the other problem is, while you can save money here in China, if you can go back to United States or somewhere else, right? There's anywhere else, and earn money in a stronger currency, or simply just earn more and through your job, through whatever, end up saving more or living a more comfortable lifestyle or living a lifestyle you prefer. Because China, you essentially have to live a highly urban lifestyle if you really want to get by. Some people don't, but like 95% do. Then what? It's so you end up in this kind of strange middle ground where things are really nice and really convenient, but you are limited. And time is ticking down, and you're knowing that you're going to have to leave. Then, it's a very odd scenario. And that's really what makes it difficult. Is actually daily life is fine. Yeah, people stare, yeah, people say hello on the street, yeah, blah blah blah. But like I mean, basically you can basically just ignore it and live a damn nice life. And so it's tough, You're kind of caught between something really good and something really not good. And, that's not even to get started on work culture here, which is frankly pretty bad. They have this concept that they call tiao xiu, and it means like what would you call that? Like a, basically tiao xiu is you make up for lost work days that you've missed because of a holiday. So we just recently had a holiday. It's like a week-long holiday. And we have to do tiaoxiu, which means they take away Saturday. We have to go to work on Saturday now. So we also had to do a tiaoxiu before the break. So before the break, we had a 6-day week, followed by a 5-day week, and then 7 days off this next week. we have a 5-day week, and then lose a weekend day, and then another 5-day week. So ultimately, they're just taking some days you lose from the holiday and tacking them on somewhere else, which leads to you essentially feeling like your holiday has been robbed. Like, what's the point of the holiday if in the following um 2 weeks I get 1 day off or like 2 days off? What's the point, right? It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's just how things are done here. And then you get there and it's really, really like boss centric. Everything is about listen to the boss. The boss invites you out for a meal after work. If you say no, it's kind of rude, or he'll won't look as kindly onto you as he would your colleagues, and would be more likely to consider them for promotions or bonuses or et cetera, et cetera. And they'll often insist that you drink, even if you don't want to drink. You kind of should drink because, it's otherwise embarrassing for them, or they view it as undermining their authority. And it's quite ridiculous. You're essentially dealing with just adult babies, more or less. And they really look to institute their power, and a lot of the time they'll just hold it over you. Now, granted, there are good bosses, obviously, and this kind of bosses, I mean, they're everywhere. But it's next level in China, and they expect long hours, and they just keep tossing more and more work on top of you. I know people who they joined a company. The company had 5 people doing 5 jobs. They slowly fire all the other people and put those responsibilities on the one person. And that's obviously bad, but what's really, really bad about it is that you as a worker are either disincentivized from due to social taboo or threats from the employer, or due to the intense competition in the job market, the looming threat of losing your job. You will just simply take it on the chin. And you say, okay, I'll just do these things for the company. Because if you lose your job, they can easily find someone like tomorrow that will do all of that for your pay or less. Because it's so competitive and everyone's looking. It's just too many people. And the job market's not very good right now. So workers are caught in this really, really bad spot, and they can't unionize. There's one union, and it's tied into the central government, so oops. And there's not a lot of recourse if you report to the governmental bureaus that will handle such things. You can get it, but most people wouldn't, because then the boss would find a way to get rid of you. Yeah, illegally, but it's what they'll do. Or you fear you won't be able to find another job, and you're going to be in the city that you just moved to, because people move all around, and you're not going to have a job. You might have to go back home and live in your village or your small town and work at the family business, where you'd mostly be beholden to your parents or your family or your uncle or whatever. And so there's a lot of social pressures surrounding your job in your career that luckily as a foreigner you kind of get to dodge. But the downside of being the foreigner, is that there aren't a lot of places for you to advance into. If you're lucky, or if you're particularly skilled, you can. But oftentimes the skills that you would have that would be able to push you into a better position in China would find you an even better position in a different country. And so there's this problem of retaining skill, and especially in China due to the pretty isolated culture, the growing nationalism, language barrier, food, whatever, all these barriers. from what I've noticed over the past few years, there is less and less interest in coming and staying in China. Almost everyone I've known has left. Even people who really wanted to stay because they just can't find something that works. And it's really a shame because it's a beautiful place and there's a lot to love. It's just that it's it's not a place for long-term plans for foreigners. It just it can't really be. Um and that's, you know, not great. But yeah, it is what it is, you know. What can we do? Oh, let me choose a new one of these. We'll do favorite society. Well, this will have to be a short one, unfortunately. I just wanted to let some thoughts out and um, maybe enlighten some people about the experience as a foreigner in China or whatever. My wife's coming home and she's gonna want some help preparing dinner. So I think I'll cut it out there. So, you know, if you enjoyed any kind of commentary, my commentary, I guess, or thoughts, if you have something else to say, leave it in the comments. If you have any ideas, things you want to talk about or hear me talk about, why don't you just tell me? And I'll be more than happy to go on a little rant about it. So I suppose that'll be it, though, for right now. And thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.